Hi guys, so I'm going to do an example now. You should have just written down, what happens when you add a value to all of the values in a data set, what happens to measures of center and measures of variation. And you also should have written down, what happens if you multiply every value in a data set by a number. So let's apply that here. I'm going to do two examples. So we don't actually have a data set. We've been given the measures of center and measures of variation already. And the problem asks, find the values of the measures shown when each value in the data set increases by 8. So that's like the adding 8. So we've added 8 to every value in a data set that we don't actually have. So what does that do to these measures of center and variation from the original data set? Well, if I look back at my notes, it says that the measures of center, so mean, median, and mode, can be found by adding k, and k in this one is 8. We're adding 8 to the original measures of center. So my mean, median, and mode, I'm just going to type this. I think would be easiest. Mean, the new mean would be 50, 42 plus 8. The new median would be 48, 40 plus 8. And the new mode would be 38 plus 8, so 46. Okay, but that is not the case with range and standard deviation. It says the measures of variation of the new data set are the same as the original measures of variation. So that's easy. I don't have to calculate anything. I just say range of my new data set is still 15 and standard deviation is still 4.9. So, I've got all these values. They've all increased by 8, which does increase mean, median, and mode also by 8. The range, though, since the lowest value and the highest value all moved up a number line by 8, the difference between those two values is still the same, so the range is still the same. And since all the values, we didn't change how spread apart they are, we just moved them up a number line. So they are still the same average distance away from the average, so the standard deviation hasn't changed. Okay, so that is an example of if you add a number to all the values of a data set, what happens to the measures. So let's do one more with, okay, what happens, it says increases by 25%. Well, that's the same as multiplying every value in a data set by essentially 1.25. That's how you increase a value 25%, is you would multiply it by 1.25. So if I look back at my notes, it says when each value in a data set is multiplied by a positive number, so 1.25 would be my number here, then the measures of center and variation can be found by multiplying the original ones by k, so 1.25. So we're going to multiply all of these by 1.25, and I haven't done that yet. So 42 times 1.25. 52.5. So my mean, here's what I would do. I'll write down. So my new mean would be 52.5. I'm just going to take all of these and multiply them by 1.25. This should be 40, 10, 50. Mode. 38 times 1.25, half of 39, this will be a decimal, 47.5, and not just the measures of center, but also the measures of variation, so range and standard deviation. I'm going to do the same thing. Oops, 4.9 times 1.25. And again, I'm multiplying by 1.25 because that's how you increase any value by 25%. That would be the math. You'd multiply it by 1.25. So 4.9 times 1.25, 6.125. Okay, so that is how all of those measures of center and variation would change. It all get multiplied by a factor, by the same factor, the same multiplier that we changed all the values of the data set by. So the difference between these two examples, this one is, it's just a straight addition. I've added 8 to everything. And I do want to say this would be the same, you would do the same process if it was decreases by 8. Then you would take the original mean and subtract 8, the original median and subtract 8, the original mode and subtract 8, and your range and standard deviation would still be the same. So this is true for adding, like increasing or decreasing a data set by a specific value. So I can show here just real quick what I did. 42 plus 8. Okay, so I just added 8 to all these original values, but range and standard deviation stayed the same. So that happens when you add or subtract a value to a data set. And this one, we're multiplying by something. So we do it to all of the measures of center and variation.